Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sarah Centrella Show. You guys, this is episode 100. 100. I just looked this morning when I was going to share my last podcast on menopause. I hope you watched it in perimenopause. And it said 99. I was like, oh my gosh, the next one is 100. And I have an amazing podcast that I need to release with a new author, but that is going to be episode 101 because I really just feel like this is a special landmark, right? And if you have been with me since 2020, when I launched this podcast, back when we were in lockdown and I had nothing else to do, thank you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading. Thanks for sharing. It means so much to me. I have really wanted to use this podcast as a forum for great conversations, for conversations that inspire and motivate me with people who inspire and motivate me. And also to share some coaching in some of the solo episodes. And so today is going to be a solo episode where I am going to share some of the life lessons that I learned on my travels over the last 2 months when I was on my epic adventure in Europe, celebrating my 50th birthday, and also just a trip that I had wanted to take since I was 18 years old, honestly. So today I'm going to share all of those lessons. I have so many. I'm hoping I can get to all of them today. But travel to me is one of the greatest teachers there is. It is your greatest coach. It is a time where you can expedite your growth journey if you go into it with an open mind and an open heart. So to give you a little context, this European trip was something that I wanted to do way back when I was like 18, 19 years old. My motivation for that, even though at that point I had not even been on an airplane yet, growing up in the country, growing up poor, the thought of traveling in Europe just could not have seemed more crazy. To me, that was really only what rich people did. And the only people that I had ever known who had traveled to Europe were my grandparents and my aunts and uncles, and actually my dad. So, my dad, when he was 19 years old, he took a gap year and backpacked all across Europe with his cousins and eventually his sister. And it was this adventure that just had always kind of stuck in my mind that seemed larger than life, that just seemed so incredible. And he had gone on that trip right before he met my mom. He met my mom right as soon as he got back from that trip. And so I'd grown up hearing stories about it from family members and whatnot, and a few from him when I was little. So it always kind of had that lore of, wow, I want to backpack through Europe. That'd be so great. And so when I was 18, 19, I did all the research. I created a route. I bought my backpack. Um, I researched all the flights, picked the time, got the time off work, and then, quite honestly, just chickened out. I was scared. I was too afraid to do it on my own. I was afraid I didn't have the money, just all the things. And so I never went. Meanwhile, several years later, when my brother Jeremiah graduated from high school, he took the summer as a hiatus between high school and his freshman year of college and kind of did the same thing. And he rode his bike across Europe. He cycled all across Europe, and through him and through my dad, I'd always heard these really amazing stories of Marrakesh, Morocco. That just always seemed like such an exotic land. They both came back with such great stories about it, about the people, about the food. My dad, I actually grew up with this little shirt that my dad had gotten in Marrakesh, Morocco. I have no idea. He was 19, so I don't know who he was buying it for back then. That was before I existed, but I did have that throughout my life. And then my brother had brought me back like this very special silk tablecloth. And so I knew I wanted to add Morocco to the list when I went, and I did 7 countries total, including Morocco. And it was just the most incredible life-changing 2 months of my entire life. And if you've been listening to the podcast and following me, then you also know leading up to that, I had some pretty tragic events happen. I lost my brother Jeremiah on the day of my 50th birthday party on June 18th, where he died suddenly and unexpectedly of a heart attack while he was cooking the dinner. And to say that there was just trauma, shock, grief, everything under the sun, it was the most horrific thing that I've experienced so far in my life, and just shocking. It was an emotional whiplash and intensity unlike anything I've ever experienced in my entire life. And then about a month later, my relationship ended suddenly and unexpectedly. And those two things together were really devastating. I'm going to be honest, very, very devastating. And I knew that I needed this trip for my own healing, to try and process and heal both of those things, but also way deeper stuff, right? To heal childhood trauma, to work through things that I have been wanting to work through my whole life. And this trip just represented that for me. It represented that healing and that opportunity to really get to know me and to trust me and to help really get clear on what is next and what I want and what I'm building and what I'm creating. And I had the alternate dream that it would help unlock my memoir, which you may or may not have read some of that. I've been putting it on Substack for a while. But I've always very much struggled with how to integrate the past and the present in that memoir. And no matter how many times I've scrapped it and started over 10 different times, no matter how many times I've tried to write it, they did not integrate. And I just have really struggled with it, including the one that's up on Substack. It's very linear, which I didn't like. So I was hoping that in some magical way, this trip would unlock how to put it all together, how to for myself, but also for the book, for the memoir. And so let's get into it. Oh my gosh, what I love about travel, not vacationing, guys. We're not talking about, going to Club Med and chilling out at, the cocktail bar. Although those are fun, trust me, they're fun too. But travel is different. Travel is all about immersing yourself in a new culture, understanding a new culture, eating new food, putting yourself outside of your comfort zone every single day and exposing yourself to something new every day, seeing something new, experiencing something new, talking to someone new. So every single day that you wake up on a trip, you don't exactly know what's going to happen that day. And there's something just magical about that. There's something that I love so much about that. You might have kind of a plan, kind of an agenda, but travel does what it wants. You know what I mean? So that agenda might get thrown to shit. Something much better might totally come along, or you might have a big obstacle that you have to try and figure out how to get through. And to me, it is just the greatest teacher of who you are as a person. It highlights that. And it shows you where your cracks are and what you need to work on. And then it also highlights how resilient and strong and capable and amazing you are. And so that is one of the reasons why I am so passionate about taking women, American women specifically, and especially on international trips. And I've been doing it since 2022. And this was my fourth year taking women to Italy, my first year taking them to Croatia. And then I did two private client experiences, one in Lisbon and one in Paris. And in all of those, I am teaching the women how to travel the way that I have been traveling, in a way that it teaches you, in a way that you grow, in a way that you're open, uh, and all the rest of the things, how to travel with confidence, etc. And that is, I get so much joy out of that because I get to share something that I'm so passionate about, and I get to see their confidence grow. when they're traveling internationally alone to come meet me. It's just such a special thing. So to integrate my coaching with on-site travel experiences each day is incredible. So I'm going to start out with a few of the lessons that I learned right in that first 10 days. So my trip, I landed in Rome. I spent about a half day in Rome, really just walking and eating until my flight that night over to Croatia. And when I landed in Croatia, because it was so late at night, my flight had been delayed and stuff. I think I got there at 1 a.m. and the airport was closed. And my Airbnb host kept on saying, "Oh, there's, taxis. It won't be a problem. You can get a taxi at the airport and come to the Airbnb." Well, there were no taxis. It was 1 in the morning. There was no one at the airport. This is a tiny little airport. I'm looking, there's no apps that are working that are finding a driver. So I'm just standing out on the sidewalk at 1 in the morning going like, okay, I can't walk there because it's a 30-minute drive. So maybe just like sit here until the morning and hopefully I can find a ride then. And eventually a cab did come by and I waved him down and he wound up charging me 4 times what it was worth. But hey, uh, and then I finally get to the town and he goes, I can't really drive up that road, so can you just get out and walk the rest of the way? And I was like, all right, here we go. It's now 1:45 in the morning and I am pulling my suitcase up a 10-minute walk hill to my Airbnb in a place I've never been in my life. And that's the magic of travel, man. I gotta tell you. So, um, of course, I was safe and fine and whatever, but it puts you in these situations where you got to figure it out, right? And you got to see kind of what you're made of and what you're capable of. And those first 10 days, I just rented a room right across from the sea. And my goal was just to decompress, to just let it go, to process, to give myself some grace, and maybe write a little bit. Those were really my only plans. And each day, the day taught me so many things. So I'm going to start off with kind of one of the first lessons, uh, a day that taught me a lot of lessons. I think I learned 5 lessons in this day. And they are to be patient, to clearly know where you're going, to be curious, and to wait out the storm because the rain always ends. And on this day, I had gotten up and I thought, oh, I want to go check out this town that's supposed to be a great little town. It's called Omis in Croatia. And I had booked zip lining for the following day. So I wanted to kind of do a little trial run, make sure I could get there in time and figure out the bus system and all of that. And so I go, it said it might rain. I was like, it's fine. I get to Omis and it is torrentially raining. And I had no idea kind of what the town was, what it looked like. I knew it was a tourist attraction, but I hadn't bothered to look it up or anything. So I get off the bus and I'm looking around. I'm like, this is not a place I want to hang out. On my social, you can see the pictures or whatever. And I was like, what is so great about this? It looks pretty ratty, to be honest. And it was just buckets and buckets and buckets of rain. So I thought, all right, I can get back on the bus and go back, or I could chill, be patient, have a coffee, get an umbrella, and just wait out the storm. And here's the thing, no matter how hard the rain is coming, guys, no matter what you are going through, if you are going through a season of everything shaken down and not in a good way, and I know a lot of people are, this year was one of those years for me, where maybe everything is on shaky ground for you. Maybe you've lost a lot of things that you had worked really hard for. Maybe your job, maybe your home, maybe things that you really thought were secure don't feel secure right now. Maybe you are going through a storm. I just want to remind you that the rain ends. The storm eventually ends. And we need to remind ourselves sometimes that those hard seasons are also temporary, even though they don't feel temporary, right? They feel like the hits just keep coming and they're never ever going to stop, but they will. If you keep the faith, if you remain patient, if you remain grateful, if you remain using your mental fitness tools, tools I talk about here, on here all the time that I teach in Think It, use those tools, use the power of pause, use mental tennis, use your IMs, use your mottos so that you can get through that storm faster and you can get out to the other side. And the other side is always worth it. It is better than you ever expected. And so on this day, I wait for about half hour, 45 minutes for this just buckets of rain. And then suddenly it stops and the sun comes out. And I was like, wow. And I start to be curious. And so I start just walking down the street. And I walk and I turn a corner and oh my God, there's the town that everyone comes to, the tourist town. It is absolutely picturesque and gorgeous and just such a gift. And I wind up pretty much having the whole town to myself because of the rainstorm. So I get to wander around and the fog is lifting and it's just could not have been more magical. And it spoke to me in every possible way. And those lessons just came out so strong. Sometimes we just have to be patient and then we have to be a little bit curious. Go see what's around the corner. And also, when we don't know where we're going, sometimes it's very easy to turn around, right? It would have been very easy for me to get back on that bus and go back because I didn't know that that cute village even existed. So it's important to know where we're going. What are we working towards? What is our vision? What is the end goal? That is the thing that is going to give us the stamina and the strength to wait out the storm. If you don't know what that is, this is your reminder to figure it out. And if you need help figuring it out, that's literally my job. That is what I help people with every single day. So reach out and I will work with you and I will help you figure that out. Okay. All right. So another lesson that came through on my solo trip in Croatia, some of these are a little bit simpler. Just watch more sunsets. That might sound silly, but when is the last time you actually went outside, sat down, and watched the arc of a sunset? Sat there for a half hour, 45 minutes, and just took it in. I think it's something we very much forget to do, and it is just a reminder to pause, to just breathe, to notice the beauty around us, to maybe have a spritz while you're doing that. Have a nice little Aperol spritz like I was. But I made it a point every single night that I was in Croatia to go to this little cafe or go down at the beach and watch the sunset. And it was just incredible. It spoke to me every day. And another one there was just do less. Do less, man. I think so much of the time we are just doing the most all the time. Like, settle down. Just pause, okay? Do less. Here's a perfect example of how that lesson came to me. So this little cafe that I love so much, I go in the first morning and I was like, oh, great. It's, just 2-minute walk. It's right here. They have coffee. Awesome. This is going to be my spot every morning. So I go in, I order my cappuccino, and then I said, do you have a croissant or something to eat? I was freaking starving. And she's like, no, there's a bakery, 5 or 10 minute walk. Like, go to the bakery if you want something to eat. So I was like, okay. And then later in the day, I come in and I said, do you have like an iced coffee? Could I maybe get an iced coffee or a mocha or something like that? And she goes, espresso? And I was like, no, like coffee, pour over ice, and I'm doing all the stuff. She's like, oh, espresso? And I'm like, no. And I go back and then finally she's like, espresso? And I was like, yeah, espresso. Okay, fine, espresso. And literally this place served two kinds of coffee, which actually all of Europe only serves two kinds of coffee. An espresso, which is one sip, or a cappuccino, which is about 4 sips. That is it. They're not doing the most. They're not fucking Starbucks, okay? Like, they're not trying to give you 90 different options filled with poisonous stuff to, you have two options. You can have an espresso or you can have an espresso, okay? And then later in the day, I go there and I have a beer and I ask if they have any food. Nope, same answer again. Go down to a restaurant if you want some food. So they have a beer and a Aperol spritz. Those are the options. So the entire purpose of this restaurant is three things: coffee, beer, Aperol spritz. They even have a sign on the door with a wine bottle and a big X over it, no wine. And I just really thought about that for a minute, and I thought, oh my God, I am always doing the most. Whenever I put an offer up, a coaching offer up, I am adding every single thing in the world I can think of because I want to add value, value, value. And I want to make sure everyone is always getting what they pay for. And I'm just adding and adding and adding. And, I'm in everything, just doing way more than I need to do, way more than is called for or is necessary, and probably making it more confusing for everybody. And so that just hit me. How many times in our day-to-day life and with the people that we interact with in life, are we the one who's always doing the most? Are other people showing up for us in that way? Because if they're not, like, settle down. Let someone else show up. Let someone else put in the work. And sometimes it's okay to be like, I do espresso or I do beer. What you want, bitch? All right. Um, okay, another one of my big lessons is allow the universe to surprise you. Leave room for the magic, because I'm telling you, almost every day there was something kind of magical that was happening. And along with that, my motto when I left for this trip was just say yes. If you get invited somewhere, say yes. If someone asks if you want to say yes. Whatever comes up, if it came to you, it came to you for a reason, say yes. And I went through the whole trip with that mentality and that mantra, and it served me so well. It put me so far out of my comfort zone, but in a really good way. And because of that, I met so many people that I'm connected with, that we really are genuinely connected. We're following each other. We've been texting, like actual friendships came out of that. I also, just became more social, got out of my personal box. I smiled more. I talked to strangers more. I feel like I just came into myself more. And that was a big lesson for me. So say yes. Let the universe surprise you. All right, here's a big one. Trust your gut and quiet the noise. So I wrote about this on my Substacks. You might have heard this story a little bit, but I'm going to share it really quickly because it was a big one. So one of the highlights of my entire trip that I've been looking forward to the most was hot air ballooning. I've wanted to do it probably my whole life for a long, long time. It's been on my live list and on my future board for a very long time. And so I had booked that. That was kind of like my 50th birthday present to myself specifically. And so that morning I was in, the van with the rest of my tourist group. There's about 12 or 15 of us or so. And we're driving out, about 45-minute drive out into the Moroccan desert, pre-dawn, so it's still dark. And we drive up to see the whole horizon lit with probably 100 balloons. And the sun was just, the light is just starting to kind of crack the horizon. And it was just the most magical thing I've ever seen in my life. And it brought me instantly to tears. I couldn't have stopped that emotional reaction if I had tried. It was just absolutely awe-inspiring, and just got more so as the sun started coming up and the sky turned candy colored, and it was just so magical. So I'm out there photographing it, just being in the moment, being present, taking it all in, just grateful to be there. I'm also having a moment because in the back of my head, I always thought this would be a very romantic moment and that I would be there with my love. And of course, my heart is still broken and I'm still kind of processing that. So I have a lot of emotions that I'm feeling and processing. And then all of a sudden I hear someone kind of calling me, going, "Hey, lady, lady." And by this time it's light, the sun has come up, and I'm looking around and I was like, where'd all the people go? There was probably 12 vans, so easily 100 plus people who had kind of come in this next wave of people. And I'm looking around and they're all gone. I'm like, wait, where did everybody go? And I look over to my van, and the last person is getting in my van, and the driver is starting the car, and he's driving away. And I was like, holy shit, what the fuck's going on? And these two guys come over to me, and there's an SUV parked, and the back seat door is open, and they are motioning me, and they're saying, lady, get in, come with me, get in. And I look at them, and I said, no, no, I don't think that's a good idea. I would like to go with my group. And I point to my van who's leaving. And they don't speak any English. They don't understand what I'm saying. And they're just pointing, like, get in the back of this car. And it's just me and these two Moroccan men who don't speak or understand any English. And I'm having this moment where my gut is conflicting with the noise. Okay. The noise, in other words, everything I've ever been told or everything that I know is don't get in the back of a fucking SUV in the middle of the African desert with two men who don't speak English and drive off in a different direction than everybody else. Like, pretty much survival 101. Don't do this, right? So everything in my head is screaming hostage situation, kidnapping situation, like what the fuck is about to happen? But oddly enough, my gut was very calm and very quiet. And by that I mean my heart wasn't racing, my body was very calm, my body wasn't nervous at all. Um, and I'm very hyper in tune to how my body responds in situations. And so I know instinctively that if I was in danger, my body would have reacted immediately. And so I'm having this moment in these couple seconds where I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And then I realized, like, if I fight this, it's going to be a bigger problem, right? Like, what else am I going to do? They're going to leave me in the desert all by myself? Everybody's gone. So why don't I just trust what I know? And I went through really quickly what I knew. And what I knew is that Moroccans, everyone I had interacted with was amazing. They were so kind. They were so caring. They really went out of their way to make you feel safe, to make you feel comfortable. Um, and and no one that I had interacted with had made me feel other than that. So I kind of was like, okay, do I feel unsafe? Do these men make me feel unsafe? And the answer was no. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna get in the back of the van. I did text my girlfriend Jackie my location and a photo. I was like, just so you know, I'm in the back of an SUV separated from my group. We've been driving around the African desert for about an hour. Not sure what's going on because they did not communicate any of that information. So I had no idea what was happening, why I was being separated. But I realized pretty quickly they meant me no harm. And they then pretty soon I started seeing some of the other tourist vans that were either following us or we were following them. And I was like, okay, so if we're all being kidnapped, I can live with that. That's fine. And I began to just kind of relax. And an hour and a half later, almost 2 hours later, we finally park and there's my balloon. Um, and I get out and they had put me with a new group. And so I get in, I have the most incredible experience. It was peaceful, it was beautiful, it was everything I ever wanted it to be. And then I get back to the spot where we're having breakfast, and I realized what had happened is I was the only single person out of the 100 plus people there. And so they had a problem with numbers. The baskets need a certain amount of numbers, and they had to like bounce me around everywhere trying to find out where to put this one single person. And if I had stayed in my van, I would have had to stand up for that hour and a half drive around the desert because there was no seating for them, and I couldn't ride in their basket because their basket was full from a number standpoint. So the lesson for me was just so powerful. It was like, wow, sometimes we are fighting the people who are actually trying to help us. And here I was, like, in the one air-conditioned vehicle, comfortable as can be. Like, they had put me in there to try and make me more comfortable, to try and take care of me. And I thought, how many times do we fight that? How many times do we fight it just because the noise tells us we have to? What if we just surrender? What if we just trust our gut, trust our instincts, trust our intuition, and surrender and stop fighting? So that was obviously a huge lesson. And you've also probably seen what happened the very last week of my trip, which was just so incredibly magical. I'll share the links to the reels and the Substack article here. So I'll just very briefly kind of share how that came about. But uh, when I left for my trip, I had most of it all planned out. The only thing that I hadn't planned fully was the final week, where I was kind of thinking I would do a train ride through Switzerland, Austria, and then end in Prague, which is where I was flying home from. But as the trip went on, that started looking less and less appealing, shall I say, because I would have to get in a new hotel every single night, be in a new location every day. And by that time, I've been living out of a backpack and a carry-on for almost 2 months. I had 3 pairs of shoes. It was starting to get really cold, and I was just like, oh, I don't know if I really want to do that. But I also kept on procrastinating, figuring out something else instead or booking something else instead. And so when I got a DM from this girl named Sarah who said that she had found my book and in her local library and was reading it. And then she said that she had a rental property in Sicily and was like, hey, if you ever want to come, feel free. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And she's like, yeah, it's kind of crazy. I found your book at my library in Sicily in this town of 5,000 people. And I was like, wait, hold up, what the fuck? Like, seriously, how on earth is that even possible? Because my book was not sold outside the US and was not translated, and this is an Italian language library. So I was like, what in the hell? And if you know anything about me, you know that Italy is my everything. And so, of all the places that my book could have wound up, for it to be in Italy was so special. And then come to find out she had the vacation rental available for that last week. And I was like, ah, that's why I wasn't booking anything else. Everything always works out. Everything always works out. And so I booked a flight from Paris to Sicily, and I showed up literally with zero plan. I had been with a client in Paris all the previous week, so I had had no time to kind of plan what I would be doing. I didn't even look at the vacation rental property. I had only exchanged a couple messages with Sarah over a DM. So when I landed, I was like, oh, yeah, and it's dark when I'm landing, which I hadn't really thought about. And so I went and got my rental car and drove off into the night following a pin because there was no address even at the place. So it was one of those crazy moments where I was like, either this is going to go all wrong or it's going to be amazing. And once again, listening to my gut, I knew it was going to be amazing. I didn't question it, honestly, for a second. But in Italy and in Sicily, you're driving on these tiny little roads in the middle of nowhere, 90 minutes out, into one lane little roads. And so I'd pull up and they had dinner waiting for me and a glass of wine. It was amazing. And of course, we clicked and connected immediately. And then kind of what unfolded the next couple days was just so magical, honest to God, like so magical. It was exactly the ending of the trip that I needed. We got to go to the library and sign the book, and then the former mayor came in, and then I got to actually meet Melissa, who was the person who had donated the book. She had picked it up at JFK Airport way back in 2017, and so it was just all these serendipitous moments that came together. And one of them that was really special was I've wanted to buy a house in Italy for years. It's been part of my 10-year life plan. And those of you who've read my books and do the homework, you know what a life plan is. I will put a link to it here. So if you want to go write yours, I have one on Substack that you can follow. But that has been my plan, and now is the time, right? Because that 10-year plan was set for when I was 50, and I'm 50. So now is the time to like get that ball moving. And it was really great because in this town of Sambuca de Sicily, I was able to not just meet Sarah and her husband, who are from the UK, and bought a €1 house and rehabbed it, and then bought this vacation property and rehabbed it as well. But she introduced me to multiple other expats from all over the world. I think there's like 70 that live there now. And so I really got to get a good sense of what my future dream actually looks like in real life. And then the coolest thing, I got to meet this woman named Josephine who moved to Sicily 2 years ago from New York City. because her husband is Sicilian, and she is literally living my dream. She has the olive grove, she has the vineyard, she has the villa, like all of it. She's an American living in Italy, living the dream. And so I got to spend a whole day with her, and we went around and she showed me everything. And it was just so special. And we connected just on a sisterly level. And I'm going to have her on the podcast. She's coming up on the podcast in about 2 weeks. So you have to definitely catch that episode because she's a spitfire. She's awesome. And I was like, this is why, like this is why I'm meant to be here. Everything, there is that greater plan. Once you put your desires out into the universe and allow for magic to happen and say yes, right? I had to say yes to get me there. The universe can deliver in ways you just never expected. You could have just never imagined. And that connection with her, she actually showed me this gorgeous hotel where I'm hosting my next retreat because we're doing them in hotels from now on. It is going to be in Sicily, and she's going to show us around just like she showed me around. She's going to curate all these amazing once in a lifetime experiences. I got to make cheese. Y'all are going to get to make cheese. You're going to be part of grape harvest and winemaking and just all kinds of cool things. So the link to grab your spot at my Sicily retreat is here in the show notes too. There's only 8 spots. It's a small boutique hotel with 8 rooms, and it's going to be incredible. You are going to fall in love with all things Italy, Sicily, growth. You're going to love both her and I together. We're going to be a lot of fun. So go book your spot. All right. I still have lots more lessons that I'm going to be continuing to share, including the one when I went ziplining, which literally cured my fear of heights, cured my fear of flying, pretty much removed all fear from me, period. Because it was the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my entire fucking life. It was, I think I was blacked out during most of it. It was that terrifying. So after living through that, I've not been afraid of anything since. So it's amazing what happens when you face your fears and challenge that voice in your head. Like you can be cured from something that you struggled with your whole life. Anything is possible, you guys. Anything. All right. Go comment, share, do all of those things because my weekly giveaway is back. The drawing is going to be every single Thursday, and you have an opportunity to win private coaching with me, books, tickets to the upcoming tour. Go grab your tickets, come into a city near you. And yeah, I can't wait to actually see you in person and meet you in person. Thank you for supporting this journey. Thank you for listening to the 100 episodes. And thanks for sharing and doing the things that really matter and are a way of giving back if my content is appreciated. All right, until next time, hustle and thrive.